Welcome to the Serve Brew, everybody. I'm Tori Townley. Hope y'all are having a fantastic week so far, wherever you're at in the world. I am so stoked. We have an incredible special guest today. This person I have crossed paths with so many times over the years. It's so funny. Like, just you look left or right, you're like, oh, there he is again. Like the Servolution journey, the Dream Center journey. We just keep crossing paths, and God is doing some incredible stuff through this pastor, through their dream center, through their church, through just their incredible hearts for their community, like incredible creative stuff. And so I was like, I gotta get this guy in to share his wisdom and his passion with our Servolution family. So you're in for a treat today. Let's all welcome Pastor Danny Gonzalez. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, we've crossed paths several times over the years, and really connected with you. Hearing Pastor Dino speak one time, I was in Oklahoma for vacation, seeing family. My wife's family lives there, and so I didn't even know who Pastor Dino was, but I heard him speak, and I was like, I need to meet this guy. Like he had the same heart that God was just stirring within me. So I remember I messaged him like after the sermon. I messaged him, and he was like, "Hey, love your heart. Like we should connect." And he sent me your information, and then that was really the journey. I think that was like 2015, 2016, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and God has just been just doing amazing things. And at the time, I think I was an executive pastor at a church, and we were launching outreach ministries at that time. And then I did a school of ministry, did some outreach with there, and then launched a Dream Center. But my heart had always, that's something that was embedded in us for the longest was outreach and serving the community. So yeah, just we kept on crossing paths because that's the world that we live in. So that was awesome. It was so cool.
That's it. That's it. It's so like your heart ever since like we met those several years ago. It was just like you're one of the guys who gets it. Like when someone has to learn outreach, which is cool. We all have to learn it. But then there's some people who just it just clicks automatically. I was like, this dude gets it for real. And so it's just so cool to like see and hear the journey of like how it was just like inspired and then practiced and just keeps growing and evolving. And I think a lot of people kind of aspire to just grow into the role that you've grown into, and it's amazing just to see the dreams come true. So just honor you guys for that. I would love to start off lightly, like tell us some fun facts about you. Tell us the details of your family, where you're from, and then maybe unfold a little bit into like your testimony, not too deep but just enough to where we connect with you. Let people get to know you.
So I'm originally from Chicago. I live in Arizona. I live in the Valley, which is super hot. So about 115 in the summer, something like that. That's normal. But yeah, so I'm born and raised in Chicago. Moved here about 10 years ago, and just because I came here and I was like, man, this is a nice place like to be at. Chicago was, still is very expensive to live, and so I moved here. Met my wife here. We have two kids, my daughter Paisley and my son Asher. Um, and so really just settled in. We just were, I would like to say we're a normal family, like we love, my whole family actually ended up moving here from Chicago. So I have three brothers and a sister. And so I moved here, my brother and my sister-in-law, my two younger brothers, my mom, my sister and my nephew, some friends, a bunch of friends. And so they fell in love with Arizona because it's beautiful. And so we moved here and just really got to enjoy here. So love Arizona. I love it a lot. Like, the state is so beautiful. You can go up north if you want snow. If you want to go just maybe even um, go see some beautiful mountains, you can go to Sedona. So really fell in love with Arizona and just been enjoying it ever since. I'm reminded every day why I continue to renew living here, because it's just amazing. So, but yeah, I originally grew up in Chicago, single mom, five kids. So it was me. I'm the oldest, and then my younger brother Giovanni, and then we have a sister, and then two little brothers. And so my mom just kind of did it on her own. Different dads. So through this life growing up, like we had different dads, and so really we grew up super poor. Like we didn't wasn't raised in church, so I didn't know what church was. always had a kind of a curiosity to religion. I would walk past churches down the street. You know, you grew up in the city, so everything's right there. So I would walk past churches happening, and just kind of was just like wanted to look inside and see like what's happening. But just my mom at one point started going to church when we were younger, and we hated it. It was so crazy. We were like, I remember very vividly, like one time it was Super Bowl Sunday, and so I wanted to watch the Super Bowl. My mom was like, "No, we're going to church," and I was so mad. I was like, "I hate church," um, but just kind of that, didn't really go to church at all growing up, and then was homeless for a little bit. My mom, lived in a shelter. We ended up living in a garage for a few months, and then lived in a kind of a broken down apartment. This owner kind of made a group with my mom that she could not pay rent for 2 months until she found the job, and so that was kind of the. I think it was 15 at that point, and so my mom started really like working, getting stuff together. And so my little brothers, they're 21 and 22. They have a different narrative of how they grew up because at that point my mom really just started going, and so they remember my mom, a different, our life a different light. So the older three, we knew like it's a different kind of story. So really outreach. It's funny. I grew up in an outreach church, so got saved at 17. Was invited to an event at a church, and it didn't get saved at the event. I was walking home and a youth pastor noticed me from the event and said, "Hey, do you two need a ride home?" And we said, "Yeah, we'll take a ride home." And then he said, "Hey, like, start asking us questions. Would you love to?" And this is back in the day. I mean, this is like early, late 90s, early 2000s, where it was, not crazy that youth pastors like, "Hey, you guys want to spend the night this weekend? Me and my wife, we'd love to have you over." So we spent the weekend at their house, and they like got all this food and chips and stuff. And for us, it was like so different, and really just kind of discipled us. Like really asked us, it really was in someone's home that we got discipled. But they were connected to my uncle's church, which I didn't know at the moment. It was a blowing church. It was growing so fast. But even then, even with the youth ministry I was growing, a church I was growing, they took time to disciple these kids. And it was me, my brother, and a couple other friends. And in their house every weekend, take us to the movies. Like we became almost like their kids. And so got saved at the age of 17, and gave my life to the Lord. And the church became a really outreach church. The kind of mission was we're a church for the hurting. So outreach was embedded in us, and I hated doing outreach when I was younger because it's everything that we did it all the time. Like, oh, there's a homeless outreach tonight. Oh, that we did Hope Fest, and so it was just like just one on top of the other. Like Father to the Fatherless Ministry for youth. Like it was just everything was always outreach. And so I never really participated in like the weekly outreaches. Like I was like, that's just not for me. And I just, we did events. And it really wasn't until I moved to Arizona where I seen the lack of, where it became like, oh, this is not, it was part of my DNA. And I didn't even know like how much I would like see the gap of the not being around. And every church I walked into, every church I was with, like that was something I was always looking for, and just didn't find it. And so it was always these conversations I would have with pastors. Like, as a youth pastor, having this conversation with the senior pastor, like, "Hey, what does it look like, for outreach and things like that?" And we started like basketball leagues, and so it was always like this thing within me that God had placed in me. And it's my story. It's how I was raised. It was how someone reached out to me and got saved. And so not knowing that, not knowing that, my uncle, who, Pastor Choco, he's like, they had the biggest AG church in the nation. Didn't know that, at the time, and was built 100% off of outreach. He was like on Time magazine, the cover Time magazine, for what he did. And again, this is not something that was like, this is where it didn't happen in the room. It didn't happen in the boardroom. It never happened in the meeting room. It happened through, this is where we're at. Like, this is where the church is at. It's planted in the community that needs help. And so instead of talking through sermon series, we talk through outreaches. We talk through meeting people's needs. And so that, for me, I didn't know that DNA or like legacy was embedded into us. Into I was older, and really started sitting down with pastors and helping them understand. Again, I didn't have a dream center, I didn't even have an outreach, but helping them understand where outreaches were going wrong, in a sense for them. And it didn't click in, because again, I was like, I don't like outreaches, but like pastors would talk through it, and I would say, well, this is, spending $5,000 on one event when you live in a community that's super poor, but you're never out there weekly or even monthly, like that, you're gonna waste your money. You're gonna feel like it didn't bring any value, and sitting down and giving advice, but not wanting to do it myself. And I was like, oh yeah, but this is, and so I knew that that's what God had called me to. And in 2012, I had written down. I had my friend, my roommate. He was like, "We're gonna do a dream board." I never even heard about this in 2012. So we did his dream board, and he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to open up a dream center." And this was like a far idea that I had in my mind. And it wasn't until like about almost 2 years ago, he moved to Wisconsin, and he's actually doing whatever he wanted to do. And but he sent me this picture, and he said, "Hey, remember this? I found this in my garage, when I was unpacking boxes. Like, remember when we did this?" And it was crazy because it was in the planning stages of saying we're going to do a dream center. And so it was confirmation, like God had just began to just start moving things. And so, yeah, that's a little bit more my story.
Oh my gosh, there's so much like richness to all of this. But I think the thing that sticks out to me the most is like, I love that you didn't even know that you thought you hated outreach. And yet when you moved, it just hit you like, oh, that's who I am. But I think the key to me is like, you understood the power of loving people and being loved. Like that dynamic, that humanity aspect, and that compassion, whether it was called an outreach or not, was who you are. And I think that's probably why the work that you guys do shine so brightly, is because the quality of it is focused on the individual and not, hey, we're doing all these giant events. Like it seems like that's the sweet spot that you guys have, is just how to love the one, because you were loved as the one, and that's so beautiful. Powerful story. I did not know that your uncle was Pastor Choco. I did not know that. You never said that in all these years. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
you don't talk about it.
You don't talk about it. You're so
Yeah.
humble. That's so wild. But it's in your DNA. I love it. Oh man. We love Pastor Choco and all of those guys out there. It's just amazing stuff. Incredible legacy. But okay, so now that we have a snapshot of your testimony, your journey, and just like the background, and just what makes you think the way that you think, I'd love to jump into where you're at now. Tell us about East Valley Dream Center. Paint a picture of like your vision for it, but then also, what does the community look like? Like
Yeah.
why Chandler, is that where
Yeah.
y'all? Okay, yeah. So like what is that community like? What are the needs and the demographics, and the weather is blistering hot? Like just what, tell us all about it. Paint a picture.
Yeah. So basically, when we started East Valley Dream Center, again, it's just like not knowing what's already embedded in me. And so we thought, homeless outreach, right? Like Dream Center, homeless outreach, that's what we're doing. And we went to a park, and at the time I was, meeting regularly with Brian Steele from the Phoenix Dream Center, and kind of like getting some advice and some like mentorship. And he was like, start up a grill. And it worked. Like it worked. Like if anyone wants to know how to start an outreach, buy a grill and start cooking hot dogs. Like, that is the easiest way. Don't cook them at your house, cook them at the site, because it changed our dynamic of what we were doing. And so we were doing that. We started grilling hot dogs at this park and serving the homeless people, and it was great. But I knew something was like, this is not like, it's not just not fulfilling, but it was like, this is not where we belong. It was in Mesa, we were doing it. And one time, like, I just knew, like, we need to move. And it was hard. I have a team that's very full of leaders. No one gets paid for doing this. And so to sit in front of them and say, hey, we're moving, after they've invested emotional energy, it was hard. And there were some questions, and there was like, are we sure? And so for me as a leader, it's like, am I sure? But remember, the next week we went there, and the homeless people were like, hey, like, we have to leave the park. The cops were making everyone leave the park. And so all of a sudden, like we started seeing a decline week after week, a week. And then we started seeing families and reaching kids and families. And then I was like, man, this is God had confirmed, like, to the last week, no one showed up. I remember no one showed up the last week we were there. And we knew this is confirmation, like we need to move to Chandler. Now, Chandler is not, if anyone looks at the city of Chandler, it's a very like wealthy community. Original, like it's in the outside is wealthy community. Medium income there is probably like, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 grand a year. Like it's I lived in Chandler. And so when I started thinking about Chandler, I was like, God, this is not like this is nice, you know, like this is, there's no way. And so someone showed me a pocket of community within Chandler, which is Old Chandler, that were these neighborhoods that where most of the crime was committed there. The We met with the school principal, and kids were dropping out before high school, struggling. They said that a kid from young to third grade learns how to read, and from third grade and on reads to learn. And they were struggling to learn how to read, so then they couldn't really read to learn. And so they were behind even in sixth grade. We're meeting with junior high principal, even sixth, seventh grade, they were just behind already. Um, and so we started finding this whole pocket of community. And we said, okay, this is it. This is the community. Um, and we just went and we did this event there one time, and some people came out to the community. We got to know some kids, and we said, "This is good." And we thought we were reaching apartment complexes. Like we thought that's what it was. Like so, we're like, "Oh, there's this apartment complex, and that's the apartment complex. Like this is awesome." Um, and we set up a grill there also, right in the middle of their basketball court, and we just started. We put a speaker, started grilling hot dogs, and it turned into, the kids would call it like a party. Every time our cars would come in, they're like, "The party's here." And so we just turned it into this party. And then one time, this lady was like, "Hey, like, I don't know if you know this, but the city of Chandler owns this property, and my boss is inside. You might want to talk to her." And I was like, "Oh, okay. We've been doing this for about 2 months. I don't know that." Um, so I walked in and talked to the lady, and she was like, "Hey, yeah, we've seen you guys. We were kind of not sure what was happening." So I explained to her from the Dream Center what we're doing, and she said, "Listen, I lived in LA for a little bit. I've heard of the LA Dream Center. I see what the good they do. We'll love they need this here, and as long as we can work together, we can definitely see this accomplished, and I just believe in what you guys are doing." So that was awesome, and just working doing that, and that community is really made up of a lot of Hispanic, maybe even some black, some white. It depends, but mostly Hispanics. Some refugees. A lot of refugee families live in that community, so you have like 2 3 families per apartment depending on what it is. And that's what the lady told me. She was like, "Hey, listen, all I ask is if you find out information, just don't tell me." Because a lot of these families are required to fill out information, and we know there's multiple families, and we don't want anyone to get kicked out. And so we built a relationship with the city of Chandler, right, maybe 2 months into where we're at. And so got to meet with her boss and housing directors. And so that was, relationship was formed. And so they own 5 sites, and about 26 homes outside of that. And then there's mobile home parks and all that around the community. I mean, it's saturated with, every time we invite somebody over to come in on a mission trip or whatever it is, and they come in and they're driving through Chandler, and they're like, "What? Like, we don't, like, this is nice." And then they pass a certain street, then they're like, "Oh, like, this is why we're here." And so, um, so right now we serve 3 of those communities weekly, and in March we're actually rolling into the fourth one. So we're in the plans of rolling out to the fourth community.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. The journey of like how you got to where you are is so cool to me. And I think that a lot of people who are listening are probably leaning into that. I've had a lot of questions like, how do you know when it's the right spot, when to stick it out, when to move on? And just love like the journey and the prayers that you prayed to figure that out, the patience, and just like bringing your team along in it and being sensitive to that. I think that's amazing. And it's so cool how God led you guys to such a sweet spot, full of beautiful people, diversity, and I love that the kids yell party when you came in. That's just like that's when you know
Yeah.
something's going right. That's amazing. Could you speak to that anymore? Like if they're, for instance, I talked to a church recently who's like, we have been doing adopt a block in a community for quite a while now, but we're just like we're not feeling like we're getting any traction, and we've been there for about a year. We don't want to just up and leave, but a lot of people are moving out. What would your advice be to somebody who's kind of trying to figure out where their sweet spot is, where to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but it really is just really like leading of the Holy Spirit. I launched Adopt a Block with the church I was at a few years ago. I remember it looked different than what we're doing now. It was knocking on doors. The community didn't have many kids, and it was knocking on doors and giving away coffee bags every Saturday. And that was a hard sell. Like I think that took a while. And again, you're talking about the same community, maybe like 5 miles north. Um, and I think timing and season is everything, because we had the heart, we had the people. We moved from doing the coffee bags to actually cleaning out people's garages, and so I mean, we had the people. It just didn't work. Like it just did not work, and um, volunteers just kind of fell off on Saturday mornings, like week to week, and so it was kind of discouraging. And I would say like everything has to do with season. Everything has to do with God's timing. Um, because I believe when you're in God's timing, it's okay to pack them and say, hey, this might not be the place. It takes confidence to say, this is not the place. Because sometimes we let our pride go into the way. It's like, oh man, like again, I had to sit in front of a team who are great leaders. Like they're great leaders. They led ministries in their own way, in their own years. And so to sit in front of them as a director for the Dream Center and say, hey, we're moving places, was hard for me. It was hard for me to do that, and I took confidence. And when I did, again, there was questions everywhere. And again, I went home that meeting. I was like, am I doing the right thing? And so I just had to trust God. And I would say, like, no matter where you're going, just make it known. Like at some point, you have to um, make it known that you're going to be there. The consistency is what drives really anything. It doesn't matter what you're giving away, and that's why I realized that with the Dream Center now. Like, it doesn't matter what you're giving away. It just matters that you're there, and I think that drives everything. Like, and so even if it's like, we don't know people are moving out, you know, I think that if you feel this is a location that you need to be in and your church is there, and especially if your church is there, if your church is in that community, it's not even like it's a must. It's a must because, it just needs to, I know Mike Burnett, he shared with us like that for the first time when he was working at a church, like, he went to go pick up a couch the lady was donating. And then the lady, he realized, the lady was like, hey, I've been here longer than the church has. And this is the first time someone from your church has ever came to my house. And so that really shook him to his core of like, at the time he wasn't the lead pastor, but he knew as a lead pastor, this is what I need to do. And so I think if the community if your church is in that community, then maybe change up what you give away, maybe change up your time, change up your days. We started and we still operate on Thursday evenings, which is unheard of, right? Adopt a Block is Saturday mornings. Just you're going to get the maximum volunteers, you're going to get the maximum hours. You know, we don't do that. We do Thursday evenings because that's how it started, and we continue to do it. And so there has been times where it's just been me and the team. There's been times where it's just been me and two team members. And it's just like that consistency. Sometimes you have to push through that season of that. But you have to know that's where God wants you. Like if you're unsure if that's where God wants you, then begin to start praying. If you know for sure that's where God wants you, and if that's where your church is planted, then you have to say, okay, how can we get creative?
Yeah, that's a really brilliant advice on just all fronts, things to think about. Um, I think that I love that adopt a block is kind of like when we talk to people who are starting a dream center, even if it's like, hey, our church is new and we want to learn how to do outreach. Adopt a block is like the first outreach that we'll recommend. And that's because it's this exploratory kind of process. We're just getting to know you. We're showing up. We're kind of giving some things away, but we're really leaning in and listening, seeing what clicks, what works, what doesn't. and we're building consistency in relationships. And that's like the exploration phase of it all. It's cracking the code. And yeah, like hopefully that stakes in the ground, you're there forever. But it is very much so like it starts off as a trial kind of a thing. And I think that what you said is so right. It takes humility to move on, because when you start off you are so committed. But that's like, I think about relationships in my life, like the seasonal is everything. I have friends that I'm not really close with anymore, but I still value that and they affected me. And so you're not the hero of the whole story. God is, in that season you made a difference. So I think that's really cool, just to have confidence in God and know that he's going to carry those stories. You might have watered the seed or planted it or reaped it, and it's his job to see the process from start to finish. So that's really great advice. And I wanted to make one other note. You said it's essential for churches to reach the community they're in, period. And I so love that philosophy. I agree with that so much. And I think it's cool because at ARC, one of the big things that is taught is, even before you plant the church, you should be serving in that community, like leading up to launch day. And I think that's so important, because you're getting to know that community already, and your church can be reflected by that. So it'd be funny to me to just start a church and not know anything about the community. So I definitely jive with that philosophy. I think that that is really, really deep, wonderful advice. So thank you for sharing all of that. Okay, so you shared a great picture of the story of the Dream Center, kind of where you're at now. I know you said you're about to launch the fourth location. That's amazing. Tell us, like, if you had to give like a snapshot. I know, do you call it adopt a block? Is that the staple? Okay, so give us a snapshot of the various outreaches you guys do, the schedule, the ins and outs. Like, how does it all operate? How does it all come together?
So we were doing the hot dogs and we were communicating with you. And one day we were doing these hot dogs. No, we weren't there that day, but like a couple of days, we're in the weekend or something, and we get a phone call, and it was from Pastor Luke Barnett, and he was like, "Hey, we'd love to, heard what you guys are doing. We'd love to take you guys to lunch next week." So we're like, "Oh wow, this is cool." Like, we know Luke Barnett, but not really know him. And so the next week, me and my brother we go to this lunch, and a friend of ours, and here comes like two vehicles, and it's like Luke Barnett, Pastor Tommy Barnett, and their executive team, and they're like, "Hey, listen, we've heard what you guys are doing. This is awesome. We love." And Pastor Luke was like, "Hey, we would love to, how can we get to where we want to get to as far as Dream City Church, like, run Adopt a Block and launch Adopt a Block again." They had went through a season where it wasn't happening, um, and so we sat down, we prayed about it, and we made an agreement. Pastor Tommy was like, "The Dream Center has your back," like, and so really they came and became our covering. And in return, my brother went to Dream City and launched our Adopt a Blocks in a couple sites and started doing these things on Saturday mornings, and it was a beautiful relationship that was formed. And really, Pastor Luke's heart was to have our Dream Center through Dream City Church. But Arizona's so big, and so like there's such a big gap. I think like a 45-mile gap between our Dream Center and Dream City Church. And so like it would, unless there was a Dream City campus in the East Valley, it just was not going to work. And so we ended up partnering with the Ark Church, New Heights Church in Chandler. And Pastor Luke met with the pastor and said, "Hey, listen, these guys are amazing. Um, Take them, because I wish I could have them, but you just take them." And so we still run our finances through Dream City and our insurance through Dream City. But really, New Heights has become our partner church, where the pastor, like, they send volunteers and they house our stuff because we didn't have a property at the time. Um, so that, in a sense, was, we were mobile, and so New Heights has been amazing. So we had to start getting creative in how we did outreaches, because one, we didn't have a home church necessarily to pull volunteers from. Two, we didn't have a day of the week that we can now coordinate with other ministries. And so we had to just kind of go in blind and just kind of do it. So we started with Adopt a Block on Thursday, and it only happened on Thursday because we all worked on the weekends at the time. Giovanni was running Adopt a Block for Dream City on Saturday mornings, and me, myself, and my other, myself, my two of my staff members were working for a job, and we worked the weekends. So that was gone. and then another one of our staff members worked on the weekend also, and like none of our team was available on Saturday, so we did Thursday evenings after work. No one's going to show up, and so a couple people showed up here and there, and we built momentum. We built excitement, and so Thursdays have become our anchor. Our Dr. Block is really our anchor for the Dream Center, and so from there, we went into the community and we said, okay, adopt a block, something that I learned from you that you had shared before. Like, adopt a block is that time where you discover what's in really need. I can bring a box of food, but right now SNAP is being provided where they're giving way more SNAP benefits than they were before. And so maybe food is not what they need. So adopt a block helped us understand what the need was. And so in that sense, we did adopt a block, and from out of adopt a block, we did our first outreach outside of that, what was called Blessed Budget. So Blessed Budget was, we took some Dave Ramsey teachers, and they created a curriculum where they could teach people in the community how to do budgeting, but to where they're at, you know. And if a family member, for every class they showed up to, we paid $100 toward one of their bills. So where Dave Ramsey class, you have to pay. We were paying individuals to come to the class. We just knew how valuable it was. We knew how much information. We knew that a lot of people don't grow because of lack of information. And so we feel like if we can provide the information that so many people have, so we got some families in, and my brother had a team of people who ran that class with him, and so we graduated some families out of that class who graduated with a small savings. Again, it wasn't $1,000, but it was a small savings, and so it was really cool to see that happen. And then out of that, one of the other girls on our team was like, "Hey, I would love to do a basketball program um, that's not a tournament, but an actual basketball camp, a camp where we could teach kids how to play basketball." So she recruited a bunch of coaches and got over 50 kids to sign up to this camp. And so we said, "Hey, every time we do an event, we want to feed the kids." And so a camp was Sunday evenings, and every camp we had dinner provided for the kids. So volunteers would come, coaches would come, they'd run through drills, and they have all these things, but they built these relationships that were so amazing. And kids would walk like half a mile from their homes to this park, and they would come with their gear, they would come ready, and so they would build these relationships. And so again, this is out of Adopt a Block. This is out of, we're in this community every Thursday. We're building trust with the individual. We're getting to learn what they want, what they need. And out of that comes a budget class. Out of that comes the sports program. And so it's not out of a meeting room, but it's out of the need that we see in the community. And so Adopt a Block is a great learning ground for us. You're sitting at a door, you're talking to an individual, you're getting to learn what they need. And out of that is birth these things. And so Sunday nights, sports program. Tuesday nights is Blessed Budget, and then Thursdays is Adopt a Block. So
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. I love to hear how it evolved from Adopt a Block. I think I've learned just in my history of serving, when I was part of those consistent serves like an Adopt a Block or a coffee cafe on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you notice like the subtle things that aren't maybe blaring or obvious or spoken, but you're really attentive to like the needs of people in a different way, like just small things.
mhm.
um you see consistent things, but sometimes it's not uttered. It's just like, oh, there's like a dignity thing here, or hey, I'm noticing people, they're not able to wash their clothes after their whatever. It's just subtle things. So I think that's so cool that that worked for you guys, that discovery thing, that Adopt a Block deal, and how so much was birthed out of it. So that's cool. Blessed Budget sounds like a really awesome idea. I think that's so rad that y'all just paid bills. Like, you get $100 bill, you get $100 bill. It's so cool. I bet people were coming out of the woodworks. I love it. Um, Okay, so I have a question now. You guys, yes, like all of these outreaches are so cool, and y'all have done just so many creative things. Like I even noticed in the summer, because you're in Arizona, you guys put out that you were doing insulated water bottles
Mhm.
because water bottles get so hot. Like
Right.
those types of things are so smart to me. Like just how you're so in tune with the little refinement things, like the thoughtful things that make such a big difference. So, would you, I threw this question in there, this is a last minute question, but since COVID, what creative pivots have you guys had to make, if any? Just like making sure that you're still serving.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah. So
spot with that
one,
one?
I would say like the creative stuff. I would say I can't take the man. Oh, my team, the team that we have is amazing. Like, I was just speaking to a pastor on Friday, and I told him, I said, if you want to build leaders, bring them to your level. Like, they shouldn't be underneath you; they should be walking alongside you because they see things that you don't see. They have gifts that you don't have, and you have responsibilities that, of course, are your responsibilities. But they can take on things and so much. And so when we lead, I feel like I'm the director, but I feel like my team has, so much more, like, as much authority or as I do, and so the ideas come pouring from them, like the water bottles and just, I mean, so many things like the bags. And so, um, COVID hit, and the girl who was over Adopt a Block was like, "Hey, what do we do?" And we kind of shut down Adopt a Block for a week or two, and we just, the first time we shut down, we took all the volunteers to go get pizza. We didn't know what was happening. This was March. And so we said, hey, we're all going to get pizza. We're going to take this time to kind of like hang out, and allowed us as a team to figure out what we're doing. So then we went from doing hot dogs to saying, hey, how do we provide basic needs to the families at this time? And so we took these Ziploc bags, and like the 2.5 gallon Ziploc bags, and we put a few items in there, and we didn't know what we were doing. And so we started knocking on doors and handing out these bags. And that's kind of how we pivoted, because what we wanted to do is we didn't bring any volunteers anymore because we were trying to figure out how does this work. So it was just our team handing these bags out week after week after week. What we didn't know is through all this, God was doing something, like just doing something super like creative in the background. And my team's kind of creative. I mean, they're really creative, and they always throw these crazy ideas. And I always tell them like, hey, we're gonna dream big. And so I think my brother had brought out the idea of doing the app, to push devotions weekly. And so I started looking at this app. I'm like, yeah, let's look at this app. As I'm meeting with the app, Subsplash, as I'm meeting with Subsplash, they started throwing out these different things that the app can do. And I was like, man, so then my mind just started going. And I was like, we can really we're mobile. We can literally have our dream center meet within the app. What does that mean? That means that, Subsplash, if you do all the add-ons, you can have a community within the app. So like community groups. So like Adopt a Block. So right now our app has an Adopt a Block group within the app. It has a shop, which is our sports program within the app. It has, so all these different things. So individuals are communicating within the app instead of like through text messages, things like that. So then it came to this point where like, hey, what can we do to be innovative? And we rolled out the requesting resources. We were sitting in our room one time, and I was like, man, what do we do? And one of the guys from the Phoenix Dream Center, he's a development officer, and so we've always kind of bounced ideas off of each other. And he was like, hey, like there's this grant coming up. It's an innovative grant. What do you think would be cool? And I started thinking, I was like, man, what about if we can, at the time we didn't know if we can even make this happen. So Subsplash is a super awesome app, but it's very much like Wix or like Squarespace, which is plug and play. um, and so it's a very low amount, like costs a little bit of money. Um, so then I said, what about if somehow we can embed something into the app where people can, instead of us just taking what we're taking to the community, they can request what they need. Now, it's a drop down form, so they can say, hey, either essential food, essential hygiene, essential cleaning, or essential household items. So they have these 4 drop downs. They fill out this information. It gets populated into Excel sheet every week, and now we can go and say, okay, site one, apartment 25 has 5 family members. This is their phone number. This is their email, and they need food this week, or they need cleaning items this week. And so it helped us become more like responsible, or more kind of like, I would say, able to use our resources the best that we can. Like, and don't get me wrong. Sometimes there's churches or individuals who say, hey, I want to donate this things, and we take those things. But now we can really target. Hey, this house, we're noticing the last 3 months or the last 3 weeks they need cleaning, or food. So now we're able to target that. So now an individual can go into our app from the community, can click on what they need. We get that email. We're able to put those bags together on Tuesday or Thursdays. and deliver them to the family on Thursday evenings. So now it's a very, very targeted. A lot of people joke around and say it's like Postmates for community outreach. And so, and that's really what it is. Like, you're giving them the power back into their hands to say, hey, you're not just a church, you're not just a dream center, you're not just somebody just giving me what you don't need or give me what you don't want or leftover food. Now you're really hearing what we need. You're really understanding, you're really partnering with our family and understanding that we don't have deodorant, we don't have toothpaste and toothbrushes. And so um, it's a lot. The background is a lot to start off at first, but man, once we did the research and we were able to put these things together, it helped our outreach become super efficient. And so it's only been a month. We've only been doing this for a month, but the efficiency has been in a whole nother level of what we're doing.
I love it so much. When I saw you guys announced it, I think you shared it in our Facebook group first, our Serve Your City Facebook
Mhm.
group, and then it was on social media. I was like, this is brilliant. Like you said, it's just so powerful when people really feel like their voice is heard. And yeah, like I can just imagine how impactful it is to just have your needs met like that. It's so beautiful. So you said Subsplash is the app and it's
Mhm.
customizable.
Mhm.
I know we have the Serve Day app, which is for volunteers and people to lead their projects and stuff. And this is another resource that our churches and dream centers can use to customize to listen to the needs of the people.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So when you guys, I'm just thinking through some of the details, like this could be such a big win for a lot of people. Um, are you guys able to collect, like, is it helping you stay in touch with the Adopt a Block families? Like you're collecting contact information. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. I'm sure it kind of
Contact
opens up.
information,
Yeah.
volunteer information. So volunteers can go in there. Hey, they're new for the first time. We get them plugged into the app. We're able to communicate with them. We can customize notifications. So like, hey, reminder, adopt a block is this Thursday. Reminder for the families. Hey, reminder, your community resource, bag is being put together. Or reminder not to order. Don't pass Wednesday. So Tuesday's kind of the cutoff day, but we kind of give them a day leeway. And so reminder to put that order in. So it really was something that's every Sunday evening at 5 o'clock, a devotion goes out onto the app. And so now community people get to see that also because they have the app so they can order food. So it was kind of our way to do that. We're like push the gospel to them in a way where they understand. And at the same time, like they're getting to know our faces and see our faces.
Wow, that's such a big win. I love it. I think it's a brilliant idea. Yeah, I cannot wait to just hear all the stories that continue to come from it. I think that's awesome. So, okay, so we've got the delivery service, brilliant. I want to jump ahead and ask, you have such a big heart for like not doing ministry alone. You have a big passion for connecting people with each other. Like you're so well connected in the serve world, and you guys do Waves Conference, which
Mm-hmm.
is an outreach conference, which is so awesome. A lot of people ask, where's the conference? We've done Dream Center conferences in the past and different things. But Waves Conference is, I haven't been yet, but I know you guys have some amazing lineups and stuff like that. So I'd love, do you guys have a date for 2021? Share the vision for it.
Yeah. So Waves Conference was really the heart. We had talked years ago about doing some kind of leadership conference. And so my brother had started something like that for small Spanish churches, kind of giving them some resources. We knew we came from a Spanish background, and we knew that some of the churches are kind of behind when it comes to some technology, things like that. So we had a heart for that. When we started the Dream Center, we adopted his conference and we started reconfiguring it like little by little, and kind of laid some vision out for it. And my brother was like, "Man, it's awesome. We should do this." And we turned it into an outreach conference. And really, like 2 years ago, we had it, and it really turned into an outreach conference. People started putting the two together. Well, East Valley Dream Center, and then we did the conference, and we had Pastor Tommy and Pastor Luke come speak, and we just had different people from other places come speak. And we knew going into this year that we wanted to, or last year going, that we really want to now build off of this. And we had Mike Burnett come out, we had Pastor Choco come out, and we just had different speakers who had a heart for outreach just to share the vision. Well, it went virtual, right? We're in COVID season, and Arizona's pretty much opened up, but still people are kind of like iffy and travel and things like that. And so We did it 100% virtual. We went to California, recorded Kayla Stecklin, and then we went to, my brother flew to Tennessee and recorded Mike Burnett. My uncle sent a video from Springfield. I mean, it was kind of like all over. And then one of our team members edited everything. We did the intros, the outros, and we pushed it. We just pushed the conference. But the heart behind it is, we know that churches, again, like I remember, I go back to the church that I met with before we started doing outreach at the Dream Center. And they were like, hey, we spent $5,000 on this outreach, this event. We did this whole barbecue thing, and we, we had all the community come out. We gave out so much food, but there was no return of investment after that. And I remember bringing up to my uncle and asking him about that. And he shared with me, he said, the return of investment is never on us, but it's the kingdom of God. The return of investment we're just sowing seeds. And if they go into other churches because they were impacted by your church, like, this is kingdom minded. And I told the guy, I said, the problem is, you spend $5,000 in one event. You could take that $5,000 and spread it out through the whole year and be able to make a bigger impact by them knowing your face, by them seeing your car pull out the parking lot, by them driving, like seeing them at the Circle K or seeing them at the Fry's. Like you have to know that you can take that money and invest it little by little, but it's the consistency, it's the showing up. And so we knew that churches, not everyone had it figured out. And so we wanted just to be, how can we provide a resource? How can we do this together? Whether Arizona or across the US. And so we started meeting with all these different people who were gifted in it, and they were like, we would love to do this. We're on board. We want to just jump in. And so next year, 2021, this year, and let me pull up my calendar really quick. November 12th, 11, 12th. So Thursday night, Friday, we are going to launch in person. That's our hope, is to launch the conference. And so Bob Goff will be speaking at the conference. We just kind of messaged him. Like, that's one thing our team is just like, we're just going to message him. The Phoenix Hillsong pastor, Pastor Terry Chris, he's speaking. AJ, the director of the Tulsa Dream Center, he's coming and speaking. The outreach director for Elevation Church, she's coming and speaking. And so we just wanted to put this investment. At first, we try to do it as, and this is being super transparent, we try to do it as a fundraiser, right? If we can get pastors to come pay for this, we can raise money. Most of these speakers want either nothing or whatever it is. And so, but God really showed me last year, we did it as a fundraiser and we went virtual and we made zero money, like zero. We lost so much money. But I remember sitting and I was like, man, we just lost all this money. But then the investment, 80 churches signed up, over 80 churches signed up. And I remember the next week, we got this big grant to able to propel what we're doing, the app and everything, to propel that. And I remember God just saying, like, you take care of my people and I'm going to take care of you guys. And it's not just the community. It's not just the community. I know that we can get in this mindset where, like, they're helpless, they're hurting, we want to take care of them. There's also the local churches, the church next to you, the church on the street, who want to reach their community, who might not know how to. And we can say, well, we can reach that community, we can get them to come to my church, or we can empower that local church and help them reach their community, because at the end of the day, it's about the kingdom of God. And so if we're investing all this time and energy and money into getting people equipped, we want to see it happen. We launched the app and we launched a commercial in so many churches, and even different dream centers are like, hey, love the idea. Would you be able to teach us how to do that? What does it look like? And, I could say, well, my team worked hard. Like, are you going to pay us for this? Like, we worked so hard. But it's like, no, it's like, hey, like, I see your heart. I see you guys serving on a weekly. I see the Dream Center and what you guys are doing. Of course, like, how can we do this? Because doesn't belong to us. Like, this belongs to God. And this is all God's creation and creativity. And so, we're like, yeah, and that's the same thing with the Waves Conference. Is we call it the Waves Conference. We believe we can make a wave in our communities. And it's through loving people, so Bob Goff coming speaking about how to love people, and AJ and what they're doing in Tulsa, it's just so amazing. And how they've impacted a community in so many different ways. Elevation Church and how in their outreach. I mean, they have taken outreach in churches, local church, into another level, you know. And so this is different. There's different people and what they're doing. And there's other pastors that are coming alongside too who's speaking. But you know, we just want, you know, we want people to know that like these people, whether it's Terry Chris and Hillsong Phoenix or Bob Goff, like understand that they're at where they're at because they love people so much. And so there's no special magic, there's no special potion to get where they're at. And I remember, you know, I like to end this. I remember after the meeting with Tommy Barnett, he brought me and my brother to their staff meeting at Dream City Church. And he sat us in front of the staff and he said, these guys are doing what I wish our team would be doing, which is going using their own money to go and help the people who are in need. They're not waiting for a budget. They're not waiting for an okay to create a ministry. They literally went to the store and bought what they needed and created something. And that's what we're trying to help pastors understand is like, you don't have to have it all together. My brother always says this to the volunteers. He's like, you know, do for one what you wish you can do for many, you know. And I think that's just the heart of the East Valley Dream Center is like, be loved, be changed, be different is the model that we always go by. And we believe that we can be different, you know, and now in today's day, we're going to be different in everything that we do. So.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. So good. The heart that you guys have is just, I think it's so cool. Like the grit that you have, but also you're just, I'm going to love people no matter what, however, whatever it takes, and let the chips fall where they may. And God is like taking it and putting everything together. And you're just storing up so many treasures in heaven. I love that you shared that. Like the return on investment literally is heaven. That's what it is. We're not worried about who gets what credit and all this stuff. So I just like so honor you guys. Like, thank you so much for just the pure heart that you've got and how you're just going to do whatever it takes. And it's beautiful to see. And I really think God's going to continue to bless you guys. And I know from all of our listeners, it's a big thank you. Just, it's so cool on their behalf, on all of our behalves. Just an honor to have gotten to hear y'all's story today. So November 11th and 12th, we will share out a link when that's ready. We'll definitely be promoting that. Definitely a killer lineup. I'm like geeking out, fangirling. Y'all got some great people coming on. But so closing questions, just real quick, how can people find you guys on social media or anything like that?
Yeah, East Valley Dream Center, eastvalleydreamcenter.org on our website. Download the app, East Valley Dream Center. Take apart our app, ask the questions, message us. Like, we would love to just help people figure that out. Um, uh, Instagram, East Valley Dream Center. So, like, it's really simple, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Everything is pretty much the same. So, if you message one of those things, you'll get us either way. So,
I love it. You keep it simple. That's very good.
simple.
And thank you for just your generous heart to share this idea and be so open. I know y'all are doing so much locally, but to have that heart to just be open and share the idea, that's really, really cool. So generous. Okay. So I think, do you have anything else that you want to share? Make sure the world knows
Oh,
how
we're good. I mean, I would say this, like, don't wait. Like, our Waves conference was started off of, we had no money. I think it was a personal bank account my brother had. And we literally offered, like, in super transparency, like, hey, we can offer you $250, like, just to come speak. And it was not even like we were flying people in, it was like local, you know? And they heard the heart, the vision behind what we're doing. And I don't think one person took a paycheck one speaker took a paycheck that time. And it's just like, don't be afraid to do something. Just don't be afraid. Don't wait for the money or the budget or wait for the right time. Like, just do it. Like, you know, I just think there shouldn't be an excuse. Like, we had no budget, no church, no funding, no credit card, no nothing. We had our personal finances and we did it.
Wow. That is so encouraging and scary, but so encouraging. Just go do it. One foot in front of the other. I always like to challenge people to just be a yes man. Sometimes I can go wrong, but like literally say yes to every opportunity to do good and see what happens. And God just like blows your mind. So that's the best advice. I love that. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Serve Brew. We'll share everything in the show notes, so don't worry if you miss something. I'll send all the links and that jazz. But thank you, Pastor Danny. God bless your team.
Yes.
We will definitely see you in November, if not sooner. But all right, y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next time on the Serve Brew. Bye.